Morning, everybody. It is Saturday morning, and this is Multifamily Unplugged. How's everybody doing today? I'm excited about being here today. We have a great guest for you, and we'll bring him in a minute. But a couple things I just want to talk about. You know me, always asking what your intentions were. What'd you get up and think about this morning? I heard the greatest thing that really what it comes down to that the biggest habit that billionaires with a B, can put on every day is their visualization. So, intentionally, are you getting up and thinking about what you want to accomplish and visualizing it and what's the clarity of it in your mind? The thing I always work with you on is that mindset, because you got to have the right mindset in order to scale your multifamily business. So a couple things coming up this year. Watch for the Global Summit. I know that there's a post out there today where you could win tickets. So my 100th episode on Insider Secrets is coming up this week. That's going to be with Dave Meltzer. I'm really excited about that one. And we talk about some really great mindset stuff on that show. However, make sure that you get registered for those free tickets for the Global Summit that's coming up in October. That's where we bring together 20 great speakers. Our speaker today is actually going to be a speaker on in October at that event as well. So you'll get a little bit today and a lot more come October. And also watching July this year for the GOB Network. We got a big event that they'll be doing out near O'Hare. So watch for those. And if you are looking for tickets, raise your hand. So this morning we are meeting with Ryan Cotter. Ryan is with Movement Mortgage, and he is a local lender actually here in Chicago. And, I like to feature as many local people as I possibly can. So if you are somebody who's an entrepreneur in a leadership position, somebody in the real estate space as a broker, agent, lender, raise your hand, give me a call, let me know. I'd love to have you on either today or on Saturdays or on Thursday morning. So always looking for great guests. So if you want to throw your hat in the ring, I'd love to chat with you. Also, we will be talking about strategy today, and we will be talking about some marketing strategies. So please go connect with me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you get your social media fix. It's just like if you are subscribed to the YouTube channel, right? You're getting this feed through YouTube, on LinkedIn if you are following me, and on Facebook if you're following me there. So just make sure you raise your hand and subscribe to that. Let me bring our guest in, Ryan Cotter. Ryan, good morning.
Good morning.
How's it going?
It's great.
So I know you're from Chicago, but you're not in Chicago today. What's up with that?
Yeah, I'm at a Hilton next to a grand convention center. I'm going to be speaking again in a couple minutes about the topic that we're talking about in front of a group. So, a lot of work on the mornings, especially on the weekends.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that event going on Saturday, but I guess my global summit will be going on Saturday as well. Hey, Ryan, how many people are at that event you're going to be speaking at there today?
Probably about 400.
Wow. Nice. All for that one brokerage, Keller Williams?
Yeah. So it's just it's a real estate, like a real estate summit, talking about, what's going on with the market, what's going on in the future, in this particular market, what the plan is. It's a mid-market city that has aspirations to become, even larger with, population shifts. This particular market is set to kind of really take it to the next level.
Yeah, interesting. So Ryan, one thing that I always like to ask my guests, and you and I had a little, and I don't, now that I think about it, why did I even ask you the question before we went on? Because it gave you some pre-time to think it through, because it would have been fun if you didn't know. But hey, so listen, what in one word best describes you personally and professionally?
Grind. Embrace the grind. It's not about the peak of the summit. It's about the climb, right? So if you have the mindset of I get up every morning, you need that intersection of passion and purpose, right? To get you up out of bed every morning. But once you find that, I mean, there's nothing that stops you, nothing that gets you down to that coffee machine faster than that, intersection of passion and purpose, and then the grind, embracing it. Like, man, let's go get after it.
Hey, what's your passion and purpose?
Educate, help people in the underserved communities. I mean, we talked about this multiple times. So there's a statistic that the Harvard study did that, like, where you are born, your zip code of where you are born is the leading economic indicator of where your life is going to go, right? And then we hear all these stories about these individuals that, came from nothing, rags to riches. That's an anomaly, right? But it's an anomaly that you can learn, right? And the old phrase, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, is a derivative of, when the disciple is ready, the master will appear, which got a little longer, little older phrase. But it's the truth, right? When you want to learn, like your educational, basis, Mike, where you're teaching people about, how to leverage, how to connect, how to establish and maintain relationships, is just the foundation of like everything you want and need to succeed. So back to that same word, grind.
Yeah. So, what's interesting is you said that the Harvard study that was done is the leading indicator. Your zip code's the leading indicator for how you're going to succeed. So and you're a Chicago guy, so you'll get this, but is that Kenilworth against everybody else?
No, I mean, you have a chip on your shoulder, for sure. But I'm the first one in my family ever to go to college. My parents had neither one of them had a high school degree, so and you hear this so many times, like, if I can do it, anybody can do it, right? It goes back to what you started off with, mindset. Right. Yeah. I'm going to succeed. Can't. My little guys say, you can't do this. No, you won't do that is what you're really saying, because you can do it.
Yeah. Isn't that an interesting comment? Right. And I think we do that with our kids, and just wait till your little one becomes a teenager.
Big kid.
Yeah. Just pre-warning you. That's all.
Yeah.
Hey, Ryan, give some background, some context on you and how you got into the lending space.
I got super lucky. I've been blessed, many, many times. At college, before college, I knew I really always wanted to get into real estate. And then, in college, I came across like a job fair where they were talking about, like, hey, you want a job as a lender? And I kind of dove in. I was like, oh man, this is pretty interesting. So, fast forward, I had an internship. And after the internship, I decided to stay on. I thought, hey, I'm not going to go back to school. I'm just going to, continue learning. I'll take night classes. I really like this. And then from there, after I graduated, I bought my first building. So what they call now a house hack. I lived in I bought a 4-unit property, lived in one, rented out the other 3, and covered my mortgage payment. So the largest expense that any human being has, which is your housing payment. We all have to have a roof over our head, right? I figured out how to eliminate that and actually become cash positive. So I stumbled along this, figured it out, and then I kept the secret to myself forever, right? Because I didn't want anybody else to buy like a property that I would want to buy, right? So I never started telling anybody. It wasn't until I had my kids that I started to think, like, I really need to educate more people about my trick. And now I see more and more people have their house hacks and their systems, and they all kind of like start in a certain area and then they gravitate, right, to larger doors, right? 100 doors. I want to have 100 doors, and we talked about this as well. Like, there's a bunch of resources for when you have, a bunch of assets and you want to like take that next leap. But I will call your program the running, right? You need to learn how to crawl, walk before you run. So that's what I focus on, is the crawling and the walking.
So that's interesting. You were on my boot camp last week.
Yep.
And I think that fundamentals piece, that piece that I teach in that first boot camp is really kind of that crawling stuff, right? Because there's so much to learn, right? Even from a small multifamily investor, you've got theory and language, and so much of it is about mindset. See, right? About getting your head right so that you can go do it. Because you wouldn't believe how many people I talk to that just the self-doubt and the fear within themselves isn't enough to push them forward. But on the fundamental stuff, there's language and theory and economies of scale and how we work other things out, the underwriting, exit planning, all of that. And so, but you have a really great program, and this is what, when you and I met, you started telling me about your program, and I want you to tell the listeners about it and walk them through how, the systematic piece about your program.
Okay, absolutely. So I've coined it the 4, 3, 2, 1 steps to financial freedom. And so the basis of it is understanding where the money comes from, right? So as lenders, all our money comes from the same place, right? Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA. There's these things called underwriters, right? They're the gatekeepers of money, right? They're the ones that say you're approved. As a lender, people think, oh, like you're the guy with the money. I'm like, no, I'm just a conduit, right? Really it comes from this trading desk that sends this synthetic derivative in lieu of money to you, and that starts with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and FHA. Yeah. So understanding the underwriting component will allow you to leverage that the most, right? So like I said, I bought my first building as a 4-unit building, right? Lived in one, rented out the other 3. So that's the 4, right? An underwriter will look at owner occupancy, and that's the key, right? I'm going to live there, right? And assess a level of risk to that. And that's the lowest level, right? If you're going to live there, you're less likely to let the property, depreciate, deteriorate, anything happen around it because it's your home, right? And so FHA allows you to maximize that leverage to 96.5% of the purchase price. So I could buy a 4-unit building with 3.5% down if I live there. If I don't live there, it's 25% down, right? Huge switch, right? And so what I found is that when you're buying property, right? A lot of people want to, like, when I talk about multifamilies and stuff like that, they're like, yeah, I totally want to do that. But you know what I want to do first is buy a house or a condo, right? Okay. But when you do that, you inadvertently shoot yourself in the foot because you won't be able to use that leverage to purchase that 4 flat because they just don't believe. They don't believe you're going to go from a single family to a 4-unit property. But they will believe that if you started out buying a 4-unit property, you could move down to a 3-unit property, right? And then you can move down to a 2 flat because you're dealing with less tenants, right? Each time. And then to the single family. And what we find is that if you buy the 4 flat first, statistically, those rents will cover the mortgage payment, if not be a little bit cash positive, right? And there's always exceptions to the rule, but that is what our statistics show. So I buy a 4 flat, I live in the top floor, I rent out the 3 floors below me, and I cover my mortgage payment. All the while, I'm saving the money. I don't say that, now that I don't have a housing expense, I go blow an extra $1,500 on clothes and shoes and going out. I save that. And I put it into a place where over 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, I now have enough money for another down payment, right? And then I tell the underwriter, hey, I'm going to go buy a 3 flat and live there as my primary residence, my owner occupancy. And they will believe that you're going from a 4 flat to the 3 flat. So they get the leverage, again, FHA financing, 96.5%, 3.5% down to buy that property. And then there's a real estate term called BRRRR, buy, renovate, refinance, repeat, right? And we can get into like my other version of that. But then, you do it again. And then you buy the 2-flat, and then you buy the single family. And the passive income from all these properties covers your housing payment. So I always tell people, like, you go to college for 4 years and you come out with a bunch of debt. I will show you 4 years of work that will have very, very good debt, and you will be able to transform your life. I call it multi-generational wealth, right? Because you can pass, these properties onto your children. We talked about this, like when I was in college, and I started to like just observe, this real estate world. There were first generation or second generation sons and daughters of immigrants that I found picked up accounting, math, marketing, all these different things really quickly because they were born into business. Their parents came over and they bought real estate, sometimes not in the world's best neighborhoods, but that changed over time, and these properties appreciated. And then from there, they were able to fund those children's college education because of real estate.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of ancillary things that came from that, but I just picked up on that right away. I was like, wow, man, that guy picked up accounting like 201 really fast. Like, what do your parents do? My dad, he has owned some real estate. He's first generation from Greece. I'm like, interesting.
So what's interesting is there again, it goes back to that education piece you were talking about, the zip code you were born in, what you were getting historically as you grow up, right? Sometimes it'll tend to make that difference.
Yeah.
So I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no. I love showing people this because I did it. And a great story that I've shared with you is that that an AT&T worker, come over to the house and was installing some lines, right? And he's looking at the house. He's like, man, that's a big house, man. I'm like, yeah. And opinions may vary, but he said, you look very young. And I was like, yeah, I started buying real estate when I was much younger, and that's kind of what led to this. He's like, oh man, I totally want to do that, right? And I'm like, okay, you can. He's like, no, I got get statement of limiting beliefs right out of the get-go. Like, no, not yet. I'm like, okay, well, let me spend a couple seconds here and dispel this real quick. You got a job because I know you're working because you're working here, right? Like, what's your credit? How much do you have for a down payment? He's like, oh, my credit's not good enough. Like, what's your credit score? That's good enough, right? What's your cash that you have for your down payment? He's like, I have $10,000 to, I got to save up more. I'm like, no, you don't. You got plenty of money. And what we did with that individual, Quantrell, was that he bought a 4-unit building on the west side of the city of Chicago for $5,000. He got in and rented out 3 of the units, lived there. It was cash positive. Totally changed his life. The beginning of that conversation was that he saw my kid running through the yard, and he's like, "Man, I got a little boy too." He's like, "I really want him to be, set for life." And then he went into the house. I was like, I will show you the path that you think is not, available to you right now. That is completely available to you. And fast forward, that guy is,
loves you today for the rest of your life.
Yeah, he calls me all the time just to catch up and say what's going on.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: you said he bought that thing for $5,000. Was it $5,000 down, or was it
total?
It was a foreclosure, so he had to go in and do.
Nope, no foreclosure. That's the whole thing. Yeah. So the purchase price was $300,000. Each one of the rents was about $800 per unit. His mortgage payment was $2,200. So the 3 rents were $2,400. So it was a little bit cash positive, but he had no housing payment. So he put 1% down as earnest money. And the thing that we talk about a lot in our circles is seller credits towards closing costs. Now, seller credits and FHA always have a negative stigmatism in the real estate industry that we try and we are succeeding in debunking, right? Because most people, when they talk about FHA, they think, oh, you don't got enough money, you got bad credit, something's wrong. Why are you going with FHA? Like, There's nothing wrong why we're going with FHA. We're just, financial wizards, and we want to leverage 96.5%. And then we want to also leverage credits towards closing costs. The phrase I use when I talk to listing agents, because when you send a contract over and you're saying we have 3% down and we want $6,000 towards closing costs, is like, these people are, they got 2 nickels to scratch, and this may or may not happen. And I will call them up and I'll be like, hey, you're going to get an FHA offer, and this is what we're going to be asking for. I want to answer all your questions ahead of time, so when you go to your seller, you can explain this correctly, because a lot of times you will see in listings or conventional offers only, right? They don't want FHA because FHA has a negative stigmatism.
Because they don't know how to handle it.
They don't know how to handle it.
Listen, I sold residential real estate for the longest time, and the worst part of the transaction was typically the other agent, just because they weren't educated enough to handle the type of transaction. And what you're talking about is creative financing. And I love creative financing, because when you pull the seller in, the seller participates or pays points or helps with closing costs, all that stuff just goes to the benefit of the buyer.
Absolutely. At no true harm to the seller.
Right. Exactly. So it's a true win-win situation. And that's what I teach all the time. If you can't do a deal that's win-win, where you can walk away from it and both parties feel like they got something, don't do the deal.
Absolutely. And what better transaction than 2 people walking away feeling good about it?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, let me just acknowledge some of the people that are online this morning. If you have comments, you want to make comments, you can go in the chat on Facebook or the comments on LinkedIn. But Lois, you are correct with it all starts with mindset and win-win. Thanks for posting that up there. But I know that there's a couple people on this morning. My guess is right. I think I referred you to Angel. Angel is, if not, you probably need to meet Angel, because he is somebody that needs this program, could use this program, and it would help him move his investing portfolio along a little bit further. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple other people, but you mentioned something earlier, and I want to back way up because you mentioned Freddie and Fannie. Explain who Freddie and Fannie are, because we got a lot of new listeners on that listen in on Saturday morning. So explain who Freddie and Fannie are, and here's what I want to know: where do you think they're headed as platforms?
Okay, so GSEs, government subsidized enterprises, right? So they are the backers of mortgages, right? So they're in essence an insurance company, right? Yeah. They are the ones that say, okay, this money is guaranteed, because the old days of going to a bank that actually has the actual funds. So how traditional banks work is grandma, grandpa, mom, and dad put money into a bank, right? They put their cash into a bank, and that bank needs to, put that money on the streets and make money so that they can pay the interest that they said that they're going to pay you too, right? And that was the norm until we had the banking and loan scandal, which was, probably, for those older viewers, something that they knew about. If you've never heard about it, Google it, right? Because you'll see what happened when banking wasn't regulated correctly. So they form these entities, and they're basically the ones that back all this financing leverage, right? So Fannie and Freddie are, again, they're government subsidized or sponsored enterprises, which means they're partly owned by the government, but they're still corporations, right? So they still want to make profit. They still want to do all the things that a responsible corporation would want to do, but they have immense oversight. There's been talk about them, peeling off and becoming just a straight corporation. I personally think that the way it is should be the way that it stays moving forward, because you need that balance. But there's talk about them becoming a separate corporation altogether, and it's in my opinion, I think they should stay the way they are.
You do? You think they should stay as a GSE?
Yeah.
That's interesting because you hear a lot that they should have stayed private, right? And so it's interesting. You think that
Not that they should change. Not to say they shouldn't change slightly, where they kick back a little bit more to pay down the deficit.
I hear you. I don't get political, especially on this platform, but it's interesting. Where do you see not just Fannie and Freddie going, but where do you see us going over the next 12, 18, 24 months? What do you see in the market?
Sub-markets, you'll see fluctuations in the sub-markets, and that obviously translates into a national market. There's like certain cities, like the city that I'm in right now, Fort Wayne, Indiana, that I think is poised for immense growth. I see places like Chicago, being stable, right? I always talk to about real estate people in Chicago, like there's so many people leaving, there's so many people coming, right? It's like if you've in your younger days, Mike, when you drove by a hot nightclub, you would see a line down the street. You're like, what are they giving away in there? Are they giving like free drinks? What's going away? Like, no, people just want to pay a cover charge to get into one place they think is hot, right? That's Chicago. I mean, we've got great food, great places to go, architecture, museums, like, there's always going to be a line out the door for people to come here because it's a city hub, right? So every college kid from Michigan to Nebraska is going to want to come to Chicago, right? So you're never going to have the city like just deteriorate completely.
Speaking of cover charges, I'm not sad to say that I paid a $15 cover charge last night at Dirty Nelly's in Palatine to watch a Tom Petty cover band. So I'm not sad to say that because it was a good band and interesting night out. It was fun. So.
Yeah. But you see that like people want to gravitate towards something, right? Whatever that is and whatever reason that is, you'll see gravitation. Like mid-market cities. What's the point of gravitating to that? Well, cost of living is lower. If you don't need the nightlife and don't need that, my dollar goes farther here, right, in Fort Wayne than it does in Chicago. I always tell people like, we go back and forth because I have a house here as well, and I go out to dinner and I'll like get 5-course meal, wine, dessert for the kids, and then I'll go back to Chicago and my bill is a lot more there than it is here. So it's balance, and obviously multifamilies has helped me be able to do what I do throughout the country. So this is where the missus's family's from. So we just bought another house here.
Yeah. So here's what's interesting, right? Is there's really two sides of the aisle, right? You got this small multifamily arena, 2 to 4 unit, and then you've got larger multifamily. And I chase a lot of the larger multifamily stuff. So I watch a lot of these metrics, these fundamentals, right? Population growth. Here's why I like Tampa today. With that central Florida market between Tampa and Orlando, because I got 1,000 people a day moving there. What happens when that happens? You've got mass momentum. You got job growth, population growth, or population growth fuels job growth, fuels household income, which allows me to fuel my rent. Ryan, I bought a deal in Florida, and I want people to listen to this because this is really important. I bought a deal in Florida, and we projected that we were going to raise the rents on 1 bedrooms $150 and raise rents on 2 bedrooms $250. Our property manager down there, we only owned it 4 months, if that. Our property manager's been raising rents on the 1 bedrooms $300 and on the 2 bedrooms $350. So we're far exceeding our expectations. We're far exceeding our underwriting. And it's all, I believe that 80% of that is driven by the population growth. So how do you justify other markets when you don't have those dynamics?
Well, I mentioned this earlier, like underserved communities are begging for the knowledge that we already have, right? So I'm focusing a lot of my attention on the south and west sides of the city of Chicago for many, many reasons. I do a lot of work with Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Mercy Home for Boys and Girls, and we definitely see that there's a lack of mentorship in those areas. And once you give a little bit, it just explodes. So when we talk to people on the south side and the west side about like, hey, you can buy a 4-unit building with 3.5%. Oh yeah, there's also this thing called the FHA 203K, which is an acquisition renovation loan, where not only can you acquire the property, but you can get money to fix it up, all with 3.5% down. It's just like it's like cooking with gas, right? And when we educate people of the communities that we want them to stay in their communities and improve their communities, to protect against, all the external forces that are going to come in and price them out of that area, and we say like, no, here's the tools that you need to succeed. Here they are. They've been available to you. There's nothing I'm reinventing, right? I'm just saying like, here, did you know about this? And they're like, no, we've never heard about this. Like, okay, let me walk you through those steps on how you can buy a 4-flat, buy a 3-flat, buy a 2-flat, buy that single family home. And in the Chicago area, you could do that all in one block because of the property stock, right? So you could change. We always talk about this, changing one little square of the world at a time. Because no matter how much money the politicians pour into those major thoroughfares, right? Those major streets, it doesn't affect what happens on the side streets. You have to affect the side streets first before those major thoroughfares do anything.
So what are you doing to make that movement, no pun intended, right? Make that movement down into those communities and spearhead that?
So, faith-based organizations have a lot of first-time homebuyer programs, like education about credit, education about financial literacy, financial budgeting. So what we've done is kind of like dovetailed in the back end, because they're already talking about ownership, right? In the term ownership, is a great word in itself. Like you asked for the one word that defines an individual. Ownership, right? I own it. I am accountable. This is mine. Right. Yeah. So they're talking about ownership, and we're just building on that. Like, hey, you want to buy a house, right? Which is the statistic that is a major indicator as well of financial wealth in this country, right? If you own a home, you're more likely to have a net worth, right? You're more likely to save in your 401k. It's more likely to budget. Right. So it's the first step. So what we're doing is just stepping behind them and saying, okay, well, home ownership is great. Right. If you ever read Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, you know that owning a home is a liability. It's a better liability than rent, but it's still a liability. Right. What we talk about is like, okay, here, like, absolutely, that's great. We don't want to deter you from that. But hey, did you also think about purchasing income producing property, which is also in his book? I always tell people there's a billion books on the internet that tell you what I'm talking about is the right thing to do, right? But what I want to focus on is educating those people that want to take the next step. I have a very, very masterful plan of how I can fix the south and west sides of Chicago. I'm selfish, right? Everybody does something for a reason. I love the city of Chicago. I have children. I want to see the city get better. And the only way we do that is embrace the disenfranchised youth, right? Show them W's on their street corners that they can look up and say, hey, that guy did it. I can do it, right? And so what we're talking about here is like by using these shovel-ready programs, to use an old phrase, is that somebody could buy a little square of a world, right? And improve it, and then be a beacon to everybody on that block. right? And then when you do that, what's going to happen? Like, so we use, improvements, adding value to property as an example, right? What's going to be needed? Labor, right? On the south side of the city of Chicago, one of the biggest things is lack of mentorship, and then the belief of not being able to succeed, right? There's also what they call food deserts, which means that there's no place to buy groceries, right? So if I can change one square of the world at a time and then provide an opportunity for somebody to work there to improve the property, right? I'm creating jobs. And then what's going to follow behind that? Need for resources, grocery stores, right? And then you're just changing the economic cycle of an entire area and making it better for everybody that's there. The people of the community stay in the community, investing in their community, improving the community. That's it.
Yeah. So what's interesting, right, is my story. And I was gone for a few years, and I taught real estate investing, right? And I'll never forget the night that this guy's going home. It was about a year before I came home. And he said, if I would have known I could have made this much money selling real estate, I'd have never sold drugs. And, it's just what you're talking about. It's the impact that you make in people's lives by bringing them not just education, because I think, you could go to school and get education if you're engaged enough, but you have to bring education that people want, people desire, to help them improve. So I love what you're doing there, and I think it's the whole mission. You and I, when we connected on a couple of things, and just the conversation. I've already sent you a couple referrals just because I love what you're doing. But here's what I like about you. Is you are the kind of lender, and I've been doing this a long time, and you're the kind of lender that says, you don't say, well, let me see if I can get it done. You're the kind of lender that says, let me get it done, right? Yeah. So an issue comes up, a challenge comes up along the way. So I want people to take heed in that, and I want them to reach out to you because, you're somebody that's going to be able to take them from A to Z. And, even if there's some stumbling blocks along the way, help them to get it done. And that's what's really important. So,
a lot of people like some people need a little extra hand holding along the way. I didn't have great credit when I started this game, really good credit now because I understand the power of it, but you don't ever tell anybody no. You say when it can happen. Right. I had a old phrase, and just somebody recently told me the phrase again. And I was like, I used to say that, which is like, if I'm talking to somebody and they tell me they can't do it, I'm talking to the wrong person. Right. And I was like, I used to say that, and it was just refreshing to see somebody young. And when I get young people that are doing what I did, I was just like, good for you. You're like, here, let me tell you, and this is the same question I ask, when I'm with other people that are more advanced than me. Is like, you can talk to me about success, right? And I can read all that and stuff like that. Tell me about the worst thing that's ever happened to you, the failure, right? Because I want to be cognizant of that more than anything. Failure, right? Failur's got a bad rap. It's awesome. You got to embrace failure. Failure is there's no better teacher in life than failure, right? Yeah. So I want to know what happened to you, how you did that, so that when that to go back to Kipling, right? If you've ever read the poem if you haven't, I highly recommend it. You take it, you put it on the wall, right? To meet that imposter, right, and succeed, that is what life's all about.
The poem is called If?
If by Rudyard Kipling. One of my favorite. I have it pinned up, and at the end, the phrase that most people know is if you can fill 60 seconds of distant run, not only will the world be yours, but you, my son, you will be a man.
Wow. All right, let's lighten things up a little bit.
Sorry.
A little bit of bonus round action right now. So Let's keep this to Chicago because you're a Chicago local.
Yep.
Favorite tourist attraction?
Favorite tourist attraction? I mean, the lakefront. You know, we drove to Fort Wayne this morning, and the sun rising over Lake Michigan, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, awesome. How about favorite restaurant?
Mia Francesca's.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow, I thought you would have picked some little something in the middle of the block somewhere that nobody'd ever noticed.
So Mia Francesca's has a bunch of locations. Really great Italian food. I mean, like, where's a bad restaurant in Chicago? Right? Like, there's no bad restaurants that I personally eat at. You know, and we go Chinese, you know, Greek, Italian. You know, we just hit the entire gambit.
Favorite food?
Favorite food?
Yeah.
Gotta go with, my dietitian's gonna kill me, but I love pizza, man. And in Chicago, all the different types of pizza. I put together a list for some friends who were coming in town, and they wanted like a list, like you got Pisano's butter crust pizza, Giordano's deep dish or stuffed pizza, Luminati's. I mean, just pizza.
Yeah. There is a bunch of different kinds. You know, it's not like it's just one type of deep dish anymore. You know, a lot of variety and a lot of opportunity. So Ryan, parting thoughts, anything you want to leave anybody with, and please by all means tell people how they get a hold of you to reach out to you and let you help them with your magic.
Yeah, you can reach out to me at ryan.cotter at movement.com. Parting thoughts is, as you were talking about earlier about what a billionaire's mindset is, what is the most valuable resource that you have? Time. That's what they're all maximizing their time. Once you realize that is your most valuable resource.
Yeah.
Move, act with intention, right? Do what you want to do. Start that first step, whatever it is. If somebody's watching this for the first time, good for you. Dive deep, keep going, don't stop.
It's funny you say that. Somebody asked me last time I was out with a friend. We were watching a Tom Petty band, and she said, she goes, "What's the most important thing in a flip?" And I said, "Time." Isn't it funny? Because your profitability on anything that we do is measured by the amount of time it takes. The longer the time, the less profitability, right?
Time kills all deals.
It kills all. So, hey, listen, this has been a blast. I look forward to a cup of coffee in the next week or so and getting together again. I look forward to the Global Summit coming up. Let's stay in touch. And you want to hang out with me backstage for a minute? I'm going to go ahead and move you out. Tell people how to get a hold of you.
Just email me at ryan.cotter at movement.com. And if there's anything I can do for any of your clients or viewers, I'm here to help.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially bring pizza to your next party. Hang on, Ryan. I'll be right there.
Okay.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here today. That was a great episode with Ryan Cotter from Movement Mortgage. Great lender, great plan, great ability for you as a new investor to follow that program 4-3-2-1. And it's very systematic. And if you're somebody who's looking to do more than that or bigger than that, there's plenty of room around there for that as well. So if you are looking to scale multifamily business or just to be a passive investor, raise your hand. Go ahead and direct message me. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions or put some information in your hands. Matter of fact, if you're looking for some basics on multifamily or my book exit plan, go to my website. Go to mycoreintentions.com/free, and you can download a copy or one or all three of those publications off the website. So, hey, we're here every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Central. We'll always have a great guest on just talking about the real estate market. Like I said earlier, if you are a local and you want to bring some content to the platform on Saturday morning, let me know. Love to have you on. Direct message me at mike@mycoreintentions.com, and make sure you're following us on any social media platform where you spend your time. I look forward to seeing everyone.